Autism. Autism is defined in Wikipedia as a developmental disorder characterized by difficulties with social interaction and communication, and by restricted and repetitive behavior. Parents often notice signs during the first 3 years of their child's life. These signs often develop gradually, though some children with autism experience worsening in their communication and social skills after reaching developmental milestones at a normal pace. Throughout my life, I have felt different or weird, but I never really found a label for myself. I also tended to worry far too much and speculated that I might have an anxiety problem. I had two great fears growing up: pain and embarrassment. Sometimes I would lose all care for one just to satisfy the other. It seems I feel pain differently than most other persons. What others might perceive as a minor injury would cause me to lose self-control, and minor pain stimuli for others would be different for me. It would distract me for hours or even days. I spent so much of my childhood playing in my own head and found so much difficulty playing with others. Relating to others is another problem I've had, and I've never actually made any friends until I was in college. People would tell me in junior high and high school that I needed to make eye contact and smile, things I did not see as important at the time. I was bright and could memorize things of subjects that I enjoyed, but I had some trouble memorizing things outside of the fun subjects. For example, at an early age, I learned about astronomy, especially the solar system, from colorful books and posters my parents kept in the house. I would repeat what I learned to other people, which made me seem intelligent, but I never really found practical use for the things I had learned or the subjects I memorized. I liked to talk when I was young, but only if I had a subject memorized to talk about. If I had nothing to talk about, I would be very quiet. This led my elementary school classmates to wonder if I had a split personality. I would easily repeat things I had read or stories I had heard. No doubt my talking annoyed some people, whether I was saying how far away Pluto was at a certain time, or what had happened on a Saturday morning cartoon. Despite my memorizing so many trivial things, I had trouble memorizing the important stuff, and had trouble in school because of that. I also had trouble finishing assignments in school. Even as early as kindergarten, other students could color in 3 pictures in the time it took me to color 1. All of my motor skills were poor. Not only were my writing and coloring bad, but I could not do athletic things like play catch. I could not throw a ball very far and certainly never accurately. I learned to ride a bike late, in my case 4th grade, and I learned to skate even later than that. When I first read about autism, it sounded very much like me, but I was quite different from any cases I'd learned about. Few cases graduated from high school, and I did not hear of any cases graduating from college. My long-term memory is potent, some even say phenomenal, though my short-term memory is rather poor. While it seems I can memorize subjects that interest me for years or even decades, important small stuff, like words on a spelling test, could be extremely difficult. Though I was reading by age 6, learning to write was an awful experience. My handwriting was slow, difficult to read because of its sloppiness, and it took up too much space. Whenever I tried to improve one of these things, the other two would get worse. When I would try to write fast, my handwriting would become near illegible. Learning printing as early as kindergarten was bad enough in this way, but learning cursive handwriting starting in 2nd grade only made these problems far worse. And with about a quarter of the school year left, when we had learned the cursive alphabet, the teacher decided that all writing from here on would be cursive. My 3rd grade teacher insisted that we write in cursive for the entire year. Spelling was another problem of mine. I would often spell a word 3 different ways on one page. In many cases, I could remember all the letters, just not the order they were in. Over the course of my life, I became interested in a lot of subjects. It actually seems I can find interest in anything. As it was, I would only stay interested for a short period of time, maybe 1 or 2 years, then move on to another subject. One fad would stay with me for a while, then I would move on to another. I was interested in film and television from a very early age, even though there were many shows and movies that frightened me. In third grade, I was interested in art, especially as it related to invention, and I became quite fascinated by the work of Leonardo da Vinci. In fourth grade, I became interested in watching birds, especially hummingbirds. In my first year of college, I added squirrel watching to that, because the college campus had many squirrels on it. In grades 5 and 6, I was interested in ancient history, especially Egyptology, though that is typically a subject taught in 6th grade. It was when I entered college at Loyola Marymount University that I really sought professional help for my emotional problems. Up until then, no one had taken me for psychological help or evaluation, and as I was beginning college, my anxiety was mounting. I was able to see a counselor at Student Psychological Services who told me that I needed counseling and that I needed medication, but she would not give me a diagnosis, stating that a diagnosis would be a red herring. Nevertheless, she remained my counselor for the school year. Throughout that first year, she often told me how rude I was. I thought to myself that therapy is not charm school. I should not have to go there to practice manners. It seemed to me I should tell the facts as they are without trying to spare anyone's feelings. Starting in my sophomore year, SPS told me I could not continue since they typically don't see a student for more than 1 year, but they would refer me to psychological help outside the campus. Referring students out into the community is their common practice once students have been in counseling for 1 year there. I ended up seeing a therapist and a psychologist on Washington Boulevard in Culver City, driving out there once a month to get counseling from the former and medication from the latter. Even still, nothing changed. I did not show any improvement and still was not given a diagnosis. Also, the cost of driving out there regularly and of the co-payments were difficult in my financial situation. In my junior year, I went back to SPS, and after explaining my situation again, they said I could see a therapist there for 1 more school year, but I should continue to take the prescribed medications. None of the drugs did anything, except Ritalin, which I tried that year, but it only made me feel worse. The woman I saw on the campus as my therapist that year had a more difficult time communicating due to her limited English. She often told me how rude I was. Also, in that same year, I spoke with a psychology professor at the university who had a son with Asperger's syndrome. He told me this was a disorder on the high functioning end of autism, and that seemed like my condition. Unfortunately, all the tests he told me about were only given to children. In my senior year, SPS agreed to provide a therapist again, though I was told this was highly unusual. The therapist I saw this time was a Jesuit priest. Though I thought he might try to incorporate religion into our sessions, he spoke of religion very little, more so than any previous therapist. Father said how rude and tactless I was, even threatening to end our sessions early if my behavior was inappropriate. Unfortunately, like so many therapists before him, he never stated what the rules of conduct were for a client, though one time he accused me of pulling the wool over his eyes and threatened to end a session on the spot if I ever did that again. I finished that year and graduated from college still without a diagnosis. Theater and performing arts are ways of coping with my condition and learning the skills which I might need. I hoped I would learn to speak loudly and more clearly to improve my communication skills. Even body language, something I never seemed to understand, is taught in theater. Many children, and a few adults, do not make eye contact or smile unless they are performing. So often in my life, I don't know what to say or how to say it, or how to even pose in the appropriate manner. In acting, particularly on the stage, there is a script and/or director to tell me what to say and how to behave at any given moment. Perhaps I am missing the script of real life, and that is why I am so awkward when I don't know what to say or how to say it. Also, sometimes I don't seem to realize which questions are appropriate and which are not. Even things obvious to other people seem to elude me, such as when I don't know when to laugh or to cry. It seems because of all this, I seek out an environment where the exact words, body language, and even tone of voice are, usually, made very clear for me. And even if it is not made clear, I can learn these things through time and training. Tone in human voice is something I still don't really understand. One more thing I have learned from theater and the performing arts is a sense of appreciation. I have come to think of and appreciate all the people who make it possible: the coaches, the coordinators, the set crews, the prop makers, and most of all, the writers. In real life, just as in a performance, a lot of work, a lot of talent, and a lot of people are needed for an accomplishment.